Welcome everybody to the Open Ministerial Session of this year's ITF Summit.
The market for rail has increased, as you know, and proved resilient despite all economic turbulence since then, and is forecast to grow even further. And the key question is why? So because rail has consistently improved its efficiency, safety, reliability, and comfort, and today and in the future, rail will continue to provide high-capacity transport solutions for a growing and urbanizing world population. Rail is green, and as it is clean and efficient, it has the lowest greenhouse gas emission of all transport modes, an optimized life cycle cost, and reaches very high level of recyclability.
This is probably one of the most exciting times that I can think of to be involved in innovation in the transport space. I can't imagine a time in recent decades when there was more technology change, there was more rapid business innovation, more new entities, and generally just more excitement about the future and all the different things that are happening. And to focus for a second on those improvements in electric mobility technologies, batteries are the thing that gets talked about by far the most. And it's with good reason. Batteries have the most leverage, they have the most impact on cost and performance of any type of e-mobility. Our future vision is that ultimately all ground vehicles are going to migrate toward electric. This is perhaps a controversial viewpoint among some different industries, but the trends we see in energy storage, fuel cost, environmental pressures, more or less make this inevitable.
You will have a lot of customers around the world who have downloaded cheap electricity at night when the wind was blowing, or maybe in the daytime when the sun was shining, who maybe don't need their car on a particular day. Have you looked at how they could then upload that electricity to the grid?
We've looked at reuse, or kind of the second life of automotive batteries for grid applications very, very closely. And ultimately, every time we've studied this, we come to the conclusion that it's not a very economical or very good use of those assets.
You present an electric vehicle, an electric model. You have to present a whole ecosystem to go with it. People using this, drivers, charging infrastructure, logistics. So how can you use that in a country where we don't have sufficient electricity in the first place?
Emerging countries have the opportunity to look at mobility solutions from a complete ecosystem and to integrate in their ecosystem not only the mobility but also all the key ingredients to make the mobility solution sustainable and workable. And from the supply chain to the manufacturing and then the maintenance and operation.
Now, I can only agree on the point of really needing the appropriate ecosystem surrounding electric vehicles. But in many cases, that ecosystem can scale as appropriate to different markets. And Tesla is one example of an e-mobility product, but perhaps if we look at the example in China, for instance, with electric bicycles and smaller electric vehicles, also in India, they've taken a very different approach to electrification with much lower cost.
It's really remarkable change that is going on, and I think it's fair to say that one part of this story has, of course, to do with the car producers who now provide cars that we actually can drive in cold climate as EV cars.
What of the existing policies that governments have in place around the world that are unintentionally blocking the business strategies you have?
I do believe that sometime we have to move out of the old paradigm and to accept how much the new technology can bring you to very, very significant improvement of the mobility solution.
Around charging, around the world, in many cases, we see, regulation not being a barrier in any way. There's a few markets where, perhaps, certain solutions are kind of pre-decided by regulation, and sometimes that isn't very helpful. And I think where standards tend to not have enough scope in their future expansion, that's one that can be a challenge for innovation.
We heard a lot about the European standard, but the European standard is still open for European. But for the global, for the world, internationally, whether the open standard is open for other as well.
Technology is there, and technology is just going faster than the time it takes decision makers to invest in public transportation. So I'm very, very, very thrilled by the discussion. I think we have to move from discussion to decision, and I would encourage us to significantly accelerate the decision-making process for a full A to Z public transportation.
The level of interest here has been phenomenal. I think it's really indicative of the amount of excitement in the whole space and the whole industry. You know, from our point of view, from Tesla's point of view, I would just reiterate that, you know, we see, you know, the pace of technology innovation in this space and the pace of product adoption, you know, continuing to accelerate. And, you know, that's going to happen across the board as we see battery prices continue to drop, and as we see the core technologies that are necessary to make electric vehicles continue to decline.
Also, thank you very much for leading this very interesting and engaging discussion. That's right, that we will now end the discussion here. But as far as I know about ministers and other people that also are thinking in transportation, we will continue this debate